Hello, all, and welcome to this afternoon's beer review. Just another lazy afternoon's beer review. I half-assed my chores today. Why? Because I was playing Civilization. Yeah, I have a severe addiction to that game. Colonization, actually, Civilization. But what are we going to be reviewing? Well, this is going to be a first for me because I don't believe I've ever reviewed a Milkshake IPA before. And why haven't I reviewed a Milkshake IPA? One, because it's a milkshake and I'm lactose intolerant, so something with lactose in it causes me gastric distress. But today I've already taken some dairy relief pills, so I can drink this without an issue. Why also haven't I drank it before? Well, it never really sounded appealing to me. And why am I reviewing this then if it's never sounded appealing to me? You know, an IPA with that sort of silken softness, creaminess of that lactose gives, sweetness. You know, it sounded like a bit much for an IPA. But as you know, I like to review local beers, and this is a local beer. And while it's not one of the first local milkshake IPAs, it is the first one I've ever seen canned. So, without much further ado, and this is from Brew, it's just a cooperative on the Big Island. I haven't reviewed too many of them because they don't really put out much new stuff in cans. There's been one that I haven't reviewed yet. I may not get around to it. Who knows? As the spirit moves me, as you know, with all things. And this is 6.8 ABV, so kind of on the heavy side. 45 IBUs, and it has the inclusion of Lilikoi and lime. Also, as well, besides lactose, there was oatmeal for extra added creaminess as part of the malt bill. So, without much further ado, we're going to pour this out into the tulip glass. Why the tulip glass? Because I was too lazy to go and look up to see what's the proper glassware for a milkshake IPA. Now, I gave this a fairly vigorous pour both times. Didn't create much head for some reason. So, yeah, a cloudy, very cloudy opalescent yellow with a thin, frothy white head, redolent of dankness, lilikoi, tropical fruit. Unsurprisingly, lilikoi is a tropical fruit. Not getting much in the way of the lime in the nosing. Maybe just a hint of brightness there. But definitely very heavy on the dankness. Well, since the head's almost completely dissipated, and as you saw, I gave it a fairly vigorous pour there. It wasn't no softy pour. Well, on to the palate now, shall we? My tongue is confused. My tongue is very confused right now. It's very strange, but it's also very muddy. There isn't much sharpness to the taste notes there. It it is very much got a taste to it, but it's like mushy and all. Let's start with the texture. So after the initial mild bite of carbonation, sort of a silken mouthfeel, very silken mouthfeel, very chewy. Bitterness is fairly mild in the mid to finish mostly. And there is a persistent sweetness throughout. It's not really cloying, but it does sort of persist into the long finish. It is for somebody who's drank very many wild ales. This is much more confusing to me than a wild ale is. Okay, so the lime definitely is there. It's in the mids. It's kind of a sharp top note. I shouldn't say top note. I kind of use that for it's above the other taste notes there on the palate, but doesn't it does not in the top. It's not in the effervescent top. There's an odd touch of earthiness to the malt base. I'm not sure why that is. Very light, but is somewhat disconcerting. So there's tropical fruit, and the citrus zest is there. It's just kind of obscured. It's all there in the mids, really. Um, yeah, hmm. Very odd. Spice thickness, it goes down fairly easy. And it's not particularly boozy either. In fact, I would say it's, while you can tell it's high ABV, it's not, there's no boozy flavors to it. So that's a plus in my book. It's kind of a danger when you start getting put towards a 7.0 mark. Yeah, it's trying to wrap my mind around this. How can I go and describe this? Well, I would say that what we have here is a fairly standard kind of tropical tasting IPA. But the addition of the lactose and the oatmeal has completely changed the way the IPA feels in the mouth. The the sense, it's all smooth, kind of creamy, as opposed to bright and sharp, which is kind of taste notes that I'm kind of going into synesthesia here. But yeah, it's not so different in regards to like the actual taste, like the fruit. There's dankness, there's tropical fruit, but it's just so different in the body and how the mouth feel. And the way the mouthfeel works is that you're feeling it a lot more, but it kind of obscures your ability to really taste aspects of it, as it were. Now, this might sound like I'm being very negative, saying that it's not sharp, there's a lack of clarity in the tasting notes, but I'm actually not really dinging this all that much. It's really interesting. It's kind of turning the IPA on its head in a certain respects because you're getting a lot of the notes that you're expecting to get for this particular style here, but it's through like a funhouse mirror. It's very different in a way that strikes me as curious. It's not something that is like wowing me. It's not making me want to return to this time and time again, I would think, but it is sort of striking a sort of note of contemplation on me. It's like, you know, it may be a gimmick, but it's also kind of interesting in how it completely transforms things. That said, being that I'm lactose intolerant, it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt for me to go and drink these on the fly. It requires me planning to go and bring like my dairy pills and like pop those before I go and have them. But yeah, I'd actually just like to go and see what a milkshake stout is like without the addition of the fruit. The fruit, I'm not going to say it detracts from it, but I think it's making it a little bit more difficult for me to really benchmark what this style is about. So obviously I can't go and say I know about milkshake stouts. I mean milkshake IPAs just by drinking one. But I'm going to need to go and explore more. And for that exploration, I'd like to go and see something that doesn't really have fruit adjuncts, even though from my reading it seems like fruit adjuncts are very popular for this particular style. Like I said, it goes down easy. There's that odd earthy note again. Kind of pops up every now and then. So, some reviews, I guess, from some people have, kind of panned this one, says not really representative of the milkshake IPA style, whatever that is. I'd say it's fairly different. I'd say it's quite strikingly different. Um, there's nothing really off about this particular beer, so I think it's worth trying. It's not something I'm going to be revisiting, but at this point, it's getting. I can kind of tell you what I do revisit. When I revisit beers, it's usually something sessionable now because that's what I enjoy drinking. Um, yeah, sessionable or sour. So yeah, that is your beer review for this afternoon, folks. Cheers.